Well, good morning everybody, and it's great to be out here in Clayton and in the great city of Melbourne and the great state of Victoria. And we're here at Corning, which has been an extraordinary partner with the Australian government in rolling out the National Broadband Network. And of course I'm here with our great candidate, Claire, who has been working hard in the field on behalf of the Australian Labor Party. She just told me, by the way, she has a bub who's 12 weeks old, so have some sympathy for what that must be like as a candidate in the midst of an election campaign. She's a first-class candidate. But we're here in this part of Melbourne because this is the heartland of what we are doing for the National Broadband Network nationwide. And all these good people behind me and to the side of me are part and parcel of our partnership in rolling out the National Broadband Network, making sure that the fibre optic cable is properly prepared, that it goes through the quality assurances necessary, and that work, as you've seen as we've gone around the place today, is being done in a first-class manner. Also, if I could draw your attention to our plan for Victoria, which outlines our record of investment in the great state of Victoria, including, most critically, what we're doing in the National Broadband Network. In fact, if the National Broadband Network was not rolled out fully in Victoria following next Saturday's election, you'd have something in the order, I'm advised, about 820,000 premises that would not be connected. And that creates a digital divide in our community, which is wrong here in this part of Melbourne, it's wrong across the city of Melbourne, it's wrong across Victoria, and it would be wrong across Australia. We want a national broadband network which is universal, which links everybody, rich suburbs, small suburbs, suburbs in between, country and city, with a universal price at the wholesale level. So make sure that every Australian has access to the information superhighway of the 21st century. I'll draw your attention also today to a report which has been released by Deloitte. And Deloitte Access Economics has, in its own conclusions, in its own report, said that Australian households will be an average of $3,800 a year better off in 2020, thanks to high-speed broadband delivered by the NBN. This is based on new research by them, and I draw your attention to it. It runs through the impact of higher upload and download speeds on the efficiency of home-based businesses, but on top of that also on saving time in conducting the normal affairs of daily life, which you can do increasingly online, so long as your broadband has got high speed, it's reliable, and on top of that has good upload speeds as well, not just download speeds. And the bottom line for us on broadband is that we're offering a fibre optic cable which provides you with download speeds of up to 1,000 megabits per second, upload speeds of up to 400 megabits per second, and our opponents are offering a broadband system largely reliant on copper cable, which would then provide download speeds of 25 megabits per second and no guarantee at all on upload speeds. And the big efficiency driver for the future is what you can do in a home-based business and uploading that which you have done and zapping it around the world. That, I think, is part and parcel of the future. Let me talk more broadly about where broadband fits here in providing these jobs of these Australians who are out here working an honest day's work for an honest day's pay, and their jobs are important to me. My job as Australian Prime Minister is to make sure the jobs of all Australians are secure into the future, and if transitions need to occur, that we help people move from one job to another. That's what we're on about. And the economy and jobs and a fair go for all is what we're on about too when it comes to Australia's economic future more broadly. I draw your attention to the National Accounts data which has just come out. The National Accounts data is important because it underlines the continued strength of the Australian economy in a very, very uncertain global economic environment. Let me make a few basic comparisons clear for anyone who is paying attention to this broadcast this morning. And it's this. As of this year, since we came to office in 2007, the Australian economy is 15% bigger than it was. And that includes about 1 million extra jobs than we had back then in 2007. So our economy over that 6-year period has grown at twice the rate of Canada. It has grown at 4.5 times the rate of the United States and 6 times the rate of Germany. That's not a bad report card for an Australian economy in difficult global economic circumstances. So we've grown 15% over the last 5 to 6 years. I draw to your attention the fact that the British economy has shrunk 3% over the last 6 years. Therefore, the economic credentials of this nation, run by this government over this period of time, are strong. We now have had in Australia, as a result of strong economic management, 22 years of continued positive growth in Australia. 11 under us put together, if you add together the period under the Hawke-Keating government and ourselves, and 11 under the Conservatives. This is a good record for Australia. But here is a really important thing as well. It means, therefore, if you're in the workforce, and if you're under 40 years of age, you've never experienced a recession. You've never experienced a recession, which, looking around here, means you haven't experienced one, you haven't experienced one, you haven't experienced one, and before I get myself into trouble, I don't think any one of you has experienced one apart from this gentleman taking the photographs. Sorry to pick on you. But the bottom line is this: recessions are beyond the lived experience of anyone in this country under the age of 40 years of age in terms of their own participation in the workforce. This is important because even if you cannot remember what a recession is like, bear in mind how easy it is to fall into one, and the consequences of that occurring are dreadful for people, their jobs, and their pay packets, and their ability to deal with cost of living pressures. Which brings me to the national accounts directly. The Australian economy in the June quarter grew by a 0.6, annualised growth rate of 2.6, which is consistent with the forecast which was put together for the economic statement of annual growth for 13-14 of 2.5. Given the global economic circumstances, this is a strong achievement. But if you go to the internals of the 0.6 growth, the three main contributors to that growth are: number one, 0.2% increase in private consumption, 0.2% increase in total public investment, and 0.2% increase as far as national inventories are concerned. These are important figures because of that 0.6% increase in growth for the June quarter, a third of it relies still on public investment. And that brings me to the core point I want to make to you all today. Public investment still, in these difficult global economic circumstances, is a fundamental part of keeping the Australian economy strong and in positive growth territory. Therefore, pulling the plug on public investment prematurely by massive cuts places continued growth at risk in the Australian economy. This is not a theory, it's a fact if you apply it to the centrality of how our current growth figures for the June quarter are put together. I draw your attention also to a recent article produced by Professor Joseph Stiglitz, published I think in the Fairfax Press, on the impact of public demand now, or public investment now, on continued growth, and if you rip that away, how easy it is to in fact starting to risk the possibility of heading into the negative growth zone. So we place an absolute priority on economic growth, on jobs growth, and a fair go for all. What I fear is that Mr. Abbott's Australia would be one where those who need help least, in fact, get the most help. And that's what I fear his paid parental leave scheme would do. I also fear for an Australia that would be an Australia that would be divided in terms of its culture of work. I fear for an Australia that would be divided by a culture of conflict in the workplace once more if Mr. Abbott were to take the knife to the Fair Work Act. But most of all, I fear an Australian economy which through Mr. Abbott's massive cuts would risk triggering the economy into recession with huge hits on jobs and huge hits on growth. That's what I fear most of all. And I underline the fact through the data that comes out through the national accounts today. We are in very fragile global economic circumstances, very fragile indeed. And therefore, we've got to be very careful about how we manage public investment's contribution to total economic growth into the future. And so I conclude with this challenge to Mr. Abbott. Given that Mr. Abbott has kept the details of his massive cuts a secret throughout this election campaign, then my question for Mr. Abbott is to guarantee that his massive cuts will not hurt the economy, not hurt jobs, and not risk triggering the economy into recession. It's a very direct question of Mr. Abbott. He knows what the details of his massive cuts are. He knows how large they would be. I've explained today how critical all that is in terms of the total equation of economic growth and jobs. Therefore, if Mr. Abbott, just 3 days before an election, is not going to provide us with the details of his massive cuts, then let me just put it in these terms. Mr. Abbott, my challenge today is for you to provide a simple guarantee to the people of Australia that your massive cuts will not hurt the economy, hurt jobs, or trigger a recession in the year ahead if you're elected.